Do you ever feel guilty for taking 30 minutes to plan your week? Like you should be answering emails instead, checking something off, or quote, actually working? This week, we're talking about why slowing down feels so uncomfortable for so many high achievers and high performers, and why the most valuable work you'll ever do often looks like you're doing nothing at all. I'll share a story from my years working in the hospital blood bank that completely changed the way I think about productivity, leadership, and creating systems that prevent chaos before it even starts. If you ever struggled to give yourself permission to think, reflect, or plan ahead, this episode is for you. Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Get Organized at Work podcast. I'm Kayla. I'm your host, and I'm very happy to have you here with me today for this week's episode. Lately, I've noticed something really interesting, not just in my own work, but in conversations with leaders in our community, and honestly, even with myself. Somehow we've started believing that work only counts if it looks busy or if it's extremely visible. If we're answering emails, walking quickly from meeting to meeting, or on Teams or Zoom super early, checking things off, responding to messages, we feel productive. But the moment we spend 30 minutes thinking, planning, or simply looking ahead, it almost feels like cheating or maybe even lazy. And today I want to challenge that idea because I actually think some of the highest value work we do looks like nothing at all. All right, let's talk about the blood bank. Some of you know if you've been listening long enough, that's where I started my career in laboratory medicine. I worked in a transfusion service and I still work in there, but in a different capacity as a leader and a systems level program manager. One of the biggest mindset shifts in my career actually came from working the bench in the blood bank and being a blood bank supervisor. If you've ever seen a hospital blood bank or transfusion service during a massive transfusion or in a really busy time of day when lots of patient care units are demanding or needing blood transfusions, it's probably not what you'd expect. People imagine techs and laboratory scientists running around, blood flying everywhere, chaos. And yes, there are absolutely moments when things move very quickly, but something interesting would happen. People from other departments would occasionally walk through the lab and stop at the blood bank. They'd see several technologists sitting quietly at computer screens. Meanwhile, across the laboratory, other teams were constantly moving, walking between instruments, loading samples, spinning test tubes in centrifuges, processing samples. To an outsider, the blood bank looked quiet, almost like nothing was happening. Sometimes as a leader, people would ask me, "Are you guys busy?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" They're like, "Oh, well, it looks like they're not doing anything." But those technologists weren't doing nothing. Their brains were doing some of the most mentally demanding work in the hospital. They were searching through years of patient history, looking for previous antibodies, comparing historical blood types, checking previous transfusion records, asking, what are we missing? Is there anything about this patient that could change what blood we give them? Patient safety wasn't created by how fast someone could walk across the laboratory. It was created by thinking, by slowing down enough to notice what everyone else might miss. The safest work almost looked invisible. Years later, I realized leadership works exactly the same way. The leaders everyone notices are usually the busiest ones, the ones constantly responding, always available, always reacting, and always moving. But some of the best leadership work I've ever done look like me sitting alone in my office, calendar open, notebook beside me, coffee getting cold, unfortunately, just thinking, looking 3 weeks ahead, connecting projects that no one else realized were connected, thinking about people, thinking about risks, thinking about what conversations needed to happen before they may become problems. If someone walked past my office or at my computer in my home, they probably would have assumed I wasn't really doing much. But that thinking often saved me hours of work, sometimes days, sometimes even months. And that's when I realized something. The work that prevents chaos rarely looks as impressive as the work that responds to chaos. Read that again in your mind. The work that prevents chaos rarely gets noticed. It rarely gets applause because if you did it well, nothing dramatic happened. Nobody knows the fire never started. Nobody celebrates the meeting that went smoothly because you prepared. Nobody notices the crisis that never happened because you thought ahead. Invisible work creates visible results. So, why is this so uncomfortable? I actually don't think it's because we don't know planning is important. I think it's because our nervous systems have been trained to believe movement equals productivity. If you're like many high performers, slowing down almost creates anxiety. You sit down to plan your week, and within 2 minutes, you're thinking, I should really be in my email, or I should knock out this quick little task, or you know what, I'll plan later. Because planning doesn't feel like work. Thinking doesn't feel like work. Reflection doesn't feel like it's work. But what if we defined work too narrowly? What if thinking is actually some of the highest value work we can do? So here's something I'd love for you to try this week. Block 30 minutes. That's it. Not to catch up or to answer email or to organize your inbox and not to deep clean your desktop. Just think, look ahead, ask yourself, what is future me likely to struggle with? What conversation have I been avoiding? What project is quietly becoming more complicated? What could I do today that would make next week easier? That is work. In fact, that might be the most valuable work you do all week. One of the reasons I'm so excited right now is because over the last few weeks, I've completely redesigned our podcast community. And what's funny is I didn't actually reorganize it around, the different types of content I have. I reorganized it around practice because I realized that people don't just need another video or podcast episode. They don't need another checklist and they don't need another productivity tip. They need somewhere to actually practice becoming the leader they want to become. So inside our community right now, you'll notice things like weekly practice or weekly coffee with Kayla, practicing together our leadership operating system. Because knowledge changes how we think, but practice changes who we become. When we practice, we integrate those things into our identity. And that's the part I'm becoming more and more passionate about. I also wanted to let you know over the next couple of months, you're probably going to notice this podcast evolving a bit. And we've already started, if you haven't noticed. We're still talking about organization and we're still talking about our love for systems, but we're going deeper. Less productivity hacks, more leadership, less just consuming, but more practicing. Because I really believe that leaders who grow the most aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who intentionally create space to think. And what I'm here to do is to help you get ready to do that and then execute on your plan. I'm building something really special for this fall around this idea, and I can't wait to share it with you more over the coming weeks. But for now, your practice is simple. Protect those 30 minutes. Think, plan, look ahead. And when your brain tells you you're wasting time, remember the blood bank. Sometimes the most important work in the room looks like somebody quietly staring at a computer. Don't mistake stillness for inactivity. Sometimes stillness is exactly where the safest decisions and the best leadership begin. Thank you so much for spending part of your Monday or whatever day you're listening to this with me. If this episode resonated with you and you'd love a safe place to practice with me and others in the community, I'd love to invite you to our Get Organized at Work podcast community. The link is in the show notes or the description below. It's where we're taking these ideas beyond listening into practice. So go check out the link and I hope to see you inside. Until next time, keep leading with intention. And remember, the best systems don't just help you get more done, they create the space to become the leader you're capable of becoming. All right, I'll see you next week. Take care.